I'm gonna fit this 75-pound turbo, which I got from a tractor, to this TVR Camaro. See if I can make the power go from 240 horsepower to over 400. The goal? To make it quicker than some of the fastest supercars on Earth from the same decade it was built. You might think that 400 horsepower doesn't sound like much compared to supercars, but the TVR has one thing on its side: weight.
If you take a car's power and weight, you can calculate its power to weight ratio. The higher the power and lower the weight, the faster it should be.
So if this old turbo can take us to 400 horsepower, that gives us a better power to weight ratio than a Jaguar XJ220, a Lexus LFA, and maybe even the Ferrari F50, one of the fastest cars on Earth from the year this car was built. But what exactly is a turbocharger? In simple terms, it's a device that forces more air into the engine to create more power.
A turbocharger uses exhaust gases to spin a turbine, which drives a compressor that forces more air into the engine. More air allows more fuel to be burned, increasing the power output. Right, so what is the process? Because obviously these weren't turbo from the factory.
No, so there is stuff that you have to do. You can't just plonk a turbo on a non-turbo car and go. I think you just mount it there.
That was pretty done, actually.
Just straight up. First things first, the turbo mounts to your exhaust manifold. That is what spins up the gases to pull in the fresh air. So it needs to mount on the exhaust. But with a V8, you have two. You have to find a way of joining them. Thankfully for us, TVR literally join them right here from the factory, and we have two V-bands that we can take off, create a custom manifold, and drop this turbo down there. The next thing we need, an intercooler. You can run a turbo without one. They don't like it. They get quite hot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run an intercooler on it, keep the IATs down, make a bit more power, and that's gonna live somewhere about there. After that, we've got an ECU to wire in, a wideband, all sorts of little bits and bobs that we need to do to make this car turbo, but the end result will be really quite cool.
We got to work on the TVR, which immediately revealed some fine British craftsmanship.
We've got a little Phillips head. This one, which is just out, you don't want to cinch that one down. You want to keep that one raised, just for the next person, for me, to be able to take it out easier. It's very nice of you. This is an aftermarket grill, this isn't standard, but I've just taken those Phillips head screwdrivers, and what they were holding in to was this. They were just going into the rubber seal, which holds this in, which is not really structural. Taking that grill out, I've only just seen something. There's a big old sucker in there. Will, look at my suck pod I got down here. Jeez. After that welcome discovery, I continued stripping down the engine bay and uncovered another pleasant surprise. So these are V-bands. You don't tend to find them on standard cars very much. It's kind of an aftermarket thing. You use them in motorsport, in aftermarket turbo cars, that sort of stuff. So you have the clamp over the top that as you tighten this down, it squeezes and tightens it. But then on the inside, you have these two flanges. Now the outer ring of whatever pipe, let's say the exhaust or the intercooler pipe, you'd weld onto this. So it's one piece, and then you'd weld the other piece onto this, and they then fit. You have a male and a female side, and they perfectly fit. There's no, obviously, you then just need a clamp over the top, which is where this comes in, tightens it down, and that is nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. They've been used on silly high horsepower cars. They're very reliable. TVR, in their infinite wisdom, decided to use them on the standard exhaust manifold, which makes our life much easier, because instead of having to custom fabricate manifolds from here, we just need to take this V-band off, which is this exact size, take one of our new pieces, like this, weld on whatever our new piece is gonna be, and slot it in. So, much easier than most normal cars, which would require full custom fabrication.
With the exhaust manifolds disassembled and some space cleared, it was time to mount the intercooler.
A very nice viewer of TDC called Tom Wassell said, yo, I've got a turbo Camaro. And I said, okay, cool. It's time for me to ask you some questions. And he said, go ahead and get yourself this intercooler. It fits perfectly. Tom, see if you lied to me or if you're correct. So I removed the radiator. So we've got all that out of the way. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, sorry. Oh. That fits. That's nice. With the intercooler fitted, I moved on to some crucial engine management upgrades. One of the first things when you turbo an old car like this is that the management, the ECU, the thing that is controlling how much air and fuel goes in, is not very smart. If it wasn't built to work with turbo stuff, they don't tend to work that well. So that is why I've got this. Don't laugh. It's called a mega squirt, right? Ben, stop laughing behind the camera, mate. It's just what it's called. This is built by a very talented guy called Phil from Extra EFI, who happens to be a viewer. Shout out, Phil. Thank you very much. And I said, can you sort me out with an ECU for this car? He said, no worries. I've got a plug and play kit. But to run that, one of the things we have to do is fit this. Ben, what's that?
Oh, do you know what it is? It's one of those shaped things that you draw around, like when you're a child.
Yeah, the little kind of thingies. This is called a crank trigger. This is your distributor. An older car has a distributor which sends spark around. It doesn't have a single coil pack. For this to be able to work better, it needs a better understanding of what the timing is saying, the timing of the engine, at any one time. That's where this comes in. So, here's one I prepared earlier. This is the crank pulley. This here is connected to your crankshaft, and that obviously spins your water pump here, your tensioner, your alternator. It spins them all. But there's another thing we can do. If we pull it off, what we can now do is essentially mount this part in between this. It will sit in here. Obviously there's other bits and bobs in between. You see, Ben, how there is one missing here? That is because we're going to mount this sensor. It is essentially just a magnetic sensor, and he's monitoring it. As the engine's spinning, it's monitoring, okay. When it sees the missing one, oh, there's nothing there, this sends a signal to the ECU and goes, yo, you're at top dead center. Shout out the YouTube channel, maybe subscribe to Top Dead Center, it's what the engine says. And that gives the ECU enough information to start controlling timing and boost in a better way. So we need to fit this, put it all back together, and then the ECU is ready to start understanding signals a bit better. So we've got to fit the old saw blade now.
With that installed, it was time to get a little bit destructive.
As we found, this car had an intake system that ran down through that delectable little hole down there. That's great for one side of the intercooler, but the other side has to go through there.
That's just nothing.
Completely unrelated. I have a hole saw in my hand.
It looks like a seagull has exploded.
Making solid progress, I got the intercooler fitted, then it was time to move on to custom fabricating the turbo system.
Right, the intercooler is in, everything is mounted, and we've come down to Rich's Fabrication, because who else are we going to take a stupid idea like this to? You're the man for making silly ideas of ours work. A tractor turbo on a TVR Camaro? Thoughts, happy?
That worked well.
Lovely, that's all we need here. So the plan is taking the original Y pipe, taking it to something like this, basically merging the two into this. The turbo will sit below it, and then the intercooler pipes either side, exhaust straight up and down the back. Sounds easy, far too complicated for people like Will or I, but for Rich,
Should be easy.
there we go.
We stepped aside to let Rich work his magic on the turbo setup.
Look at this contraption that Rich has crafted. We've been staying out the way. This is actually so cool. I'm extraordinarily excited for this now. And we've also got the external wastegate on. So most turbos that you'll see, they'll have like a little thing on the side here. That's your internal wastegate that opens the flap. This doesn't have one of those, so you need to externally control how much boost it's making.
Yeah, John Deere's didn't have them, did they?
No, yeah, the tractor it was on didn't have it.
Let's lift it in, and then hopefully it should just fit.
Now this is cool. Ridiculous turnaround for something that you had no idea of before other than some photos on WhatsApp. This is very cool, thank you.
With the fresh setup test fitted, we got back to the unit to continue working on the TVR.
Right, we're back from Rich's. He's done an incredible job on the kit, but it might look like we're mostly there, but this is the list of what we still got to do. These are big jobs. And more. There's 2 pages. This is double stacked. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to do all the stuff underneath the car. When you run a turbo, oftentimes the fuel system can't keep up. So you fit new injectors, but also the fuel pump in these cars is known to be a little bit iffy, especially when they're old. So we're going to replace the fuel pump. We're going to then drop the oil pan off, because I will show you there's something else that you have to do for a turbo. And then that's all the stuff done underneath, and we can cross off maybe one of these things.
After replacing the fuel pump, I removed the oil pan, ready to do some of my own fabrication work.
So the reason that I've taken the oil pan off, the oil pan sits on the bottom of the engine here. It's where all of the oil in your engine collects at the bottom, and then this pickup sucks it back up and circulates it around. But there is quite an important thing we need with this oil pan for the turbo conversion. It spins so fast that it needs oil lubrication. You take a feed from the engine and feed it into the top of the turbo, and then it comes out of that hole at the bottom and needs to drain somewhere. So you drain it back into the oil sump with the rest of the oil for it to be recirculated again and go back through the turbo. But as you can see, there aren't any ways in. This is up against the engine. The only way in is the oil drain plug. So I'm just taking it off. I'm going to clean it up, clean the surfaces off of here from the silicone, drill into this pan, which is always a little bit scary, and then put in our new drain, pop it back on, and then we will need to route an oil line up to the turbo in a bit.
To create the new drain hole, Edwin carefully measured the best spot for it and then marked the oil pan with its location.
Given the high stakes, letting our videographer Ben drill into the oil pan seemed like a fun idea, though unsurprisingly, it didn't go entirely smoothly.
Okay, scary?
It all happened so fast!
Now, if that isn't a hole in a piece of metal, that's decently high up. The reason you don't want it to be at the bottom is going to fight the oil. The oil's going to glug back up the line going out.
With the pilot hole drilled, Ben switched to a special stepped drill bit to get the exact size we needed, but he wasn't exactly enjoying the process.
Not a fan of that.
Ben carried on with the drilling until eventually,
I'm not doing it.
so I took matters into my own hands and finished the job with ease.
Yeah, lovely. Now's the real thing. We have to now clean this out, because if any of these little shavings sit in that oil pan, then we start it up with the fresh oil, it's going to go into the engine. Oh, we have to clean. Oh, damn it.
With the oil pan fully cleaned up with our parts washer, I applied fresh sealant and refitted it to the car.
Then there was a very important job to do to the turbo system.
Now, you might be a bit confused because I've just taken the turbo system off again. That is because we had to add in the gasket between the turbo that was missing, and also we need to add in the springs into the wastegate. Usually you have a wastegate on the turbo. This is external, hence the name external wastegate. What we do is we simply open it up. These colours are what chooses how much boost the turbo makes. The pressure of the springs is what builds up how much boost level before this opens up. So we refer to our diagram. Our aim is about 12 psi. So if we come onto the pressure chart, 11.6, that would be white and green together.
So Edwin installed the correct combination of springs into the wastegate.
Once the turbo is making that pressure, it will push those springs up and release all of the excess turbo pressure down into the pipe. If it drops down then below to 8 psi, it will close, turbo will build more pressure, you keep a constant 11 psi. Oil feed is crossed off, so is drain on turbo. That is because I've now got the feed on the one side of the turbo fitted with the correct oil restrictor, and then on the other side, you can see we've got the oil drain, half of that done. This is where your oil pressure switch is. I've just fitted a T-piece from that, so not only does it have oil pressure going to the silver bit, it also goes down this line. That will go to the top of the turbo and feed our turbo with oil. So, last bit of fuel system, got to take the plenum back off and put the injectors in. Some bigger injectors to flow enough fuel to feed the turbo.
I removed the plenum and pulled out the injector rail, which went well.
3 out of 8 came out. The rest of them sat in there, managed to get them out, clean them up. That is because we're getting rid of these standard injectors for a set of aftermarket ones. They're nothing special. These are actually for a Vauxhall C20 LET. Same sort of stuff you get in our Zafira. If I'm honest, I can't actually remember how much bigger they are, but this is what all of the turbo guys run on their cars. They go for the bigger ones.
So I installed the new, larger injectors.
Then it is on to fitting up the turbo for the final time, which will probably happen this weekend while I'm alone here, so we are against a tight schedule. So unfortunately, probably going to cut some pretty shaky footage now.
But this is where things started to go wrong.
I came in over the weekend hoping to wire in the ECU loom and get the car nearly finished, but I quickly realised it was going to take way more time and effort than I expected.
What's required to fit the loom?
Ow.
Huge. As you can see from Will's reaction, it's not gone great. I came here on the weekend to button up some small bits and get the loom run through, and this is where we're at. So the loom is a custom loom for this engine, not necessarily this car. Remember, the Rover V8 came in many cars. So usually what would just be pulling through your ECU loom would be not the worst job in the world, but this is a TVR. I forgot about that. So what that requires doing is removing the entire dashboard, because where the ECU runs in, there's a little grommet. That means I've had to take apart the whole dash. We've now got, as you can see here, all of the engine loom is now loosened out. And the reason is because our new loom replaces basically all of it. I'm now at a point where I can start yanking on things.
This is a massive pain, but what would have been worse is buying this TVR only to discover it had a dodgy past.
Thankfully, while Ben and I pulled the old loom through the firewall, we were comforted knowing that we'd run a car vertical report before buying it.
The loom is now back through the dashboard. I've now got to take it all apart. While this does look like a car crash, hundreds of actual cars get crashed every single day. Some people try and repair them and put them back on the road to try and hide their dodgy history. With a car vertical report, you can find out that shady past.
Now, all you need to do a car vertical check is the car's VIN. But if you don't have that, you can also use the car's number plate. And if you put that in, the car vertical report will tell you if that car has been crashed, stolen or clocked.
With the old loom out, I got to work figuring out exactly which part of the loom we actually needed to keep.
We need this loom here. That goes to a starter, and then the alternator a little bit further up here. Now, like I said before, it does look like it's been in a car crash, but the TVR Camaro is, thankfully for us, green ticks for both mileage, finance, and damage. We've also got a yellow tick for ownership, because we can see how many owners this car's had over the years.
I got busy tearing the loom apart in hopes of extracting a single large alternator wire that I needed to keep for the new one.
Here is the remnants of the loom. Ben, would you like to know what we need from this?
Well, I assume from all the work you put in, is it all of it?
Just that, dumber.
What?
It's just the alternator feed. That's all we needed from it, the whole thing. That goes from the alternator under the car to where the starter is to the battery feed. That is it. Now we are ready to start threading through our new loom.
Now, this 911 hasn't been so fortunate because we've got a yellow marker for mileage, and if we click on that and scroll here, you get a graph to see the mileage, and if we scroll across, we can see that the mileage went down at some point. Now, there may well be an explanation for that. It might have had different clocks or some other issue, but with a car vertical report, you can find out this information and make sure you pay the right price.
So if you're ever buying a car, van or motorbike, make sure that you're on a car vertical report to make sure that the price you pay for it matches its history.
And just for you, Car Vertical are offering you 20% off when you use our code TDC.
Our next job was to get the new wiring loom back through the firewall and reconnect it across the engine. And once that was done, it was time for an exciting little interior mod.
These are called a wideband. You might know your car has in the exhaust system an O2 sensor. It does what it says on the tin. It senses how much oxygen is in the exhaust and uses that to work out if your engine is running right. This is a bit more advanced. It's still the same sort of concept. It will give us a live reading of our air-fuel ratio and not only show it to us so that we can see if the car's running safely or not, but also it will send it to the ECU and let the ECU react to it. I would like to have it somewhere on the dashboard. Now, this stuff, it would be nice to replace this. We don't have time at the moment. Surely we don't need a clock.
I like a good watch, but we need to know if
We need boost. Look, it just fits. Ooh, that's cool. That will be your only way of knowing that this car is turbocharged. That's the first sign that something's afoot.
Despite the mess, we were actually getting pretty close to finishing and starting the car, until progress slowed again, but this time, it wasn't the car's fault.
The evening after we finished that day's filming, Edwin got pretty unwell, and with him away recovering, we were running low on time to wrap this video up. So we brought in classic car specialist Kyle from Skyrocket Automotive to hopefully keep things moving, but it wasn't going well.
Obviously this is the coil pack set, and it's meant to mount to the fuel rail bolts at the back of the engine. I can just about get my fist in that gap just there. They're only a skosh narrower than my fist, and there's still electrical connectors to go on.
Kyle got stuck in, but the TVR was wearing him down.
You look sad.
Oh, a bit sad, Will.
You've split the part in two because it wouldn't fit down the back.
Yes.
So you've done some engineering, and now we have this cool thing where we've got them either side, and that all seemed very good.
We're not doing the plenum. The boost is gonna come up.
Just sort of like, just make the jump.
In there.
Yeah.
Get with the times, man. Everything's wireless now, isn't it?
The issue was the new custom coil pack placement ended up blocking the plenum, and Kyle had to spend ages trying to make it fit, until finally...
I refused to let that slide. I was able to drill out the holes for the coil pack, move them over on the bracket, and now we fit, and we're still symmetrical. I just couldn't stand the idea of it not matching.
But the issues didn't end there.
This oil line here, which just goes to the turbo, not quite fitting.
No, so he was facing the wrong way and too short. We've got the oil pressure sensor as well on this same T-piece. I understand why it was routed the way it was, because it hits the sump. So we've tried to rotate it round and see if we can reroute the line, get that out of the way, just generally make everything a little safer. But we've now hit the snag where the line's a little too short for that too. So, quandary.
Time for thinking, I guess.
Yes.
Kyle worked his magic, and before long, he had come up with a clever solution.
We have a potential solution.
Stolen from that 1.8 turbo engine there.
So we just need a switch to panic and turn the oil pressure light on when it gets low. A much smaller Volkswagen Audi Group 1, single pin. We should be able to now, yeah, that's much, much better for positioning.
Well, that is a positive.
It certainly is.
With those adjustments, the oil line could now reach where it needed to go safely.
Ooh, that looks like it fits. Yeah, not bad at all. Got some slight adjusting to do, and then we can cable tie it out of the way.
almost there with a solution for that.
Right, I'm back. I'm no longer sick. Thank you to Kyle and Will for carrying on while I've been away. I've put together a load of things, and it's dangerous seasons.
The laptop's out.
I've installed all the software that he's doing. I've connected what needs connecting. It's time to try and crank it. Part of me feels like I'm going to turn the key and nothing's going to happen, which I'm quite worried about.
I went for the first attempt, but expectedly, nothing happened.
Nothing on the key now does nothing. No.
Edwin kept trying, but it wasn't looking positive at all.
Nothing. Right. Diagnosis time.
I started diagnosing what could possibly be wrong and quickly realised that we might be missing something very important from when we installed the new wiring loom.
When you try and turn it on, nothing happens. There's no click from the starter, there's no nothing. It seems like there's no signal to the starter motor. And we had to take off one little pin from the starter motor before because it was part of this loom that we had to chuck away. So we've just thought, hold on, maybe it's in here. And here is that one that I took off the starter, and it runs into this block. There's another side of that block still in there. So if I just chop this, plug this in back on the starter, plug this back into the connector that's not being used, we might have a starter in there.
This wasn't ideal at all. We were running out of time and I really wanted to get this TVR started before we had to wrap this video up.
Edwin hastily got the starter wire installed into the new loom and then checked to make sure we weren't missing anything else, hoping that after all of this work, this car would finally fire up.
The battery's going to be a bit low, but we might have a starter motor now. So, done all sorts of wiring. Okay. All right. Let's calm down. Ooh.
The TVR was finally turning over, but it now refused to fire up, leading me to believe there was still lots of time needed to work out what was wrong, and that we may not be able to diagnose it immediately.
Do you want to go? Yeah, try one more time. I feel like that's not the correct coil settings.
With it getting later and the TVR refusing to start, I had to accept the unfortunate truth.
Unfortunately, this is not the way I was hoping to end this video. I was hoping to end it with a startup and some turbo noises. It's coming up for quite late on a Friday night, and this video comes out on Monday, and there's simply no more time left to film this video. The coil packs are not firing to get the timing set up right. We'll be dialing up a local tuner. There will be another episode where Will and I are going to sort out everything that's wrong, as well as get this car dynoed and hopefully making that 400 horsepower. Keep your eye out for that soon. Click here if you want to watch where Will fixed up his VX220. We will see you next week.